rep to protect here.
Okay, I got the recording on. Let's start. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Well, welcome to this is I do this every month. By the way, for everyone who doesn't know what I do outside of teaching, I do a monthly call, and it's called Lives Well Lived, and it's just where we feature someone in their life, and and I think this month Kimesha Narteh is doing some neat things with her life. So we've had some really cool guests, and this month is no exception to the rule. So welcome to the call. Our guest Kimesha has worked for reputable organizations and companies and their affiliates as a mentor, project coordinator, supervisor, program counselor, project assistant, trainer, facilitator, tutor, lecturer, guest speaker. She's also an advocate of addressing anti oppressive strategies. Her life experience is the ultimate foundation of her business, having overcome her most trying barriers and challenges: social change, identity, family transitioning, emotional issues. Her self determination to improve her life despite circumstances paved her way. She has combined her educational, professional, and personal experience to establish a business that supports transitioning through administrating, organizing, and accessing resources. Kimesha is also involved in a project called Launching the Bond, which is a mother-daughter relationship cooperative to improve the coping mechanisms that secure healthy relationships. On air as a global movement to protect, nurture, and value women and girls. Kimesha Narteh is keen for principle, passion, and solution. Welcome to the call, Kimesha.
Thank you. This is
Thank
really
you, and
exciting.
welcome Melanie and Siobhan, and I'll unmute you at our Q&A time too, Mel. So get ready
Thanks.
to participate. Um,
Thank
so
you.
tonight's call. Let's get started. I got a lot of questions that I prepared for you, Kimesha. What were the early days of your life like? You know, as a young child, where were you born in Canada or were you born abroad?
Okay, so my early days of life, I found that they were very challenging growing up, but um, it was really fun. It was like actually the most positive, memorable um, stage of my life was definitely like my childhood and growing up. That's where I really felt the essence of my family, what family was, and what it really felt like. So definitely my early days were good.
And
Um,
were you born here or in Ghana?
In Ghana, yeah, I was actually born here. But funny, I'm just gonna add to that. But funny thing is, when I go around or people ask me, cause especially because I have a bald head, everybody's like, "Where are you born?" And some people who are indigenous to Africa who have immigrated here, they all assume that I was actually born in Ghana. In Ghana, some people tell me that or suggest that I was born in Liberia. So I got a lot of comments that I resemble more of my African indigenous side more than my Jamaican side. So just to clarify that question, I was born in Canada, North York, born and raised, and my family, my mother and my father's side, are Jamaican, and it's actually my daughter and her father who are Ghanaian, and her side of that family who are Ghanaian, and I left here to go to Ghana. I gave birth to her, and I raised her in Ghana for about 3 years before we finally came back to settle here.
Okay. So as a kid, you know, like growing up in North York was a pretty like North York. I find you know it's a pretty safe little community. You know, it's not everything is nice in North York. What was it like for you as a kid going to school in those early days, socially? You know, did you have a big come from a big family with other siblings? You know, and what
Yeah,
was life
so
like for you there?
my siblings were made up of, I have an older brother and an older brother of 3 years. I'm the middle child, 28, and I have a younger sister who is 2 years younger than I am. And growing up for me, we didn't have a big family actually. All of the other families, so like my cousins, um, their families were all made up of three actually. And growing up in North York for me, I felt comfortable. I appreciate North York because of its diversity. And when I mean diversity, I mean like ethnic diversity. Um, but I definitely grew up in this community called Willowdale, and we call it Willow Tree. So it was a Toronto community housing uh, complex community, and all my friends who went to school, they all lived in houses, literally. So I was definitely in between the two. So I never actually had a core group that I was always with. You know, I was always with my friends, who they call, you know, my white friends, and that's when I was called whitewash. And then I would be with my friends from school, or then I would be with the older kids, and then when I came back to the community, I was with my community people. So like I was always all over the place. I never had like a core group of people. Just had blocks of groups that I would just go in between.
And how did that shape you? You know, like into who you are now?
Well, I know growing up I always had an identity issue, because when I was among those people, and those people I mean not from my community, because when you're in a community you kind of everybody kind of just knows each other, right? I mean, you could walk outside with your hair in half extensions and half like your natural hair, and nobody's talking, because that's just what it is. But when I went to school, I had my biggest challenge, even growing up now, was having an identity conflict. I'm not going to call it a crisis, but identity conflict, because I was always in conflict of who I was and how come I never just fit into like one group of people. And that was challenging, because some days, I know growing up as a kid, I had like we have naturally kinky afro hair, and my mom would braid my hair, and that would like piss her off, because you know that whole process is long, it's tedious, and it hurts her cuticles. And then I would go to school, and then they'd be like, wait a minute, how come your hair is so long all of a sudden? And then like in a month, it's like so short. So I always found that kind of difficult for me to always have to like explain. And then I started to like question myself. And then even going even further is like going to their house, and if I didn't have my extensions in, it would be like my natural hair, or I'd have to like iron comb my hair. And so I just definitely had a hair issue that started with being among my friends, or my friends outside of my community, who I was with a lot more than I was with my community people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that definitely started my identity conflict growing up throughout my life.
But you know, looking back on it, like, what was the gift in it? Do you think? Like, do you see sort of a gift in it now? Like, do you see maybe that growing up like that has actually helped you in life rather than hindered you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, you know, I was just having a conversation with my mom, whose relationship we are always going back and forth and rekindling. And I always give gratitude and like utmost appreciation for that process, because more and more I was allowed to question myself and who I am. And as an adult now, I'm able to learn, you know, I have a phrase, and I share it with people, is I learned best about I learned who I am through my interactions with others. And that's just something that's carried me throughout my life. And that experience, even though it was a little bit kind of traumatizing at times, I'm not going to lie to you. Your hair straight, and then you go into the pool and the plastic bag isn't working, and you have to, all of a sudden your hair is in an afro. Like, being questioned about that stuff, it sticks with you. You know, even growing up now, I hate hair. Like, I absolutely hate hair. I'm not scornful. Actually, I am being scornful. I hate hair, period. If I see anything that looks curly and it's on the floor, like, I'm traumatized. Like, I'm dead serious. And that's because of growing up. Like, combing my hair at my friend's place, and like I see my hair all over the place, and oh my god, watching The Craft, and it's like, oh my god, are those pubes? So those things stick with you. That's why bullying is not cool. But it's not even bullying, it's a matter of questioning and knowing that sometimes jokes can actually have a long-term effect on people, and you don't even realize it, because you're just wondering, right? You're just curious.
So that's why you cut it close now, your hair.
Yeah, eventually I realized that I went through phases, David and our guests, like I went through so many phases in this identity conflict that I was having, from trying to figure out where I belong, from having sleepovers and not having, it started from there, like going to sleepovers and not having bags, like having to always have to be adapting. that became a problem for me too. And I was like, you know what? Because I'm always in transition, literally from moving from one place to the next and meeting new people and just doing so many different things, changing jobs, that instability component of my life. I was like, you know what? I'm starting fresh. I'm cutting you off. Like, and I just cut my hair off because I want to just focus on me and my face and who I am. And I'm at the stage of my life where I'm so comfortable accepting who I am that having hair on my head doesn't even matter anymore. Like, those traumas or those triggers are gone.
All right. Well, let's look a little more closely at this, okay? Because
Absolutely.
I find this really fascinating. So
Oh, yay!
in
Yay!
your biography, it says you experienced, identity, challenges, which we just talked about, social change, family transitioning, emotional issues. What
Yeah.
inside you helped you to overcome that? Because, here you are, like, you said you grew up in Willowdale, and I lived in Willowdale too as a late teen. And Willowdale, Kamisha, sorry
Yeah.
to say, at the time I lived here in late 1979,
Hmm.
Willowdale was a pretty white bread,
It was.
average middle class, upper middle class area, right?
Right.
And so how, and here you grew up in a part of Willowdale that was already different. It was
Yeah.
the poorer part of Willowdale, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
True.
s- Subsidized housing. How,
That's right.
how, so already as my friend Jennifer Huff, who's a coach and speaker and very well known, she talks about this club that a lot of us belong to. It's called the Not Belonging Club. It's funny that there's a club for people that don't belong. So
Right.
how did you overcome, those feelings of not belonging? First of all, being an outsider, maybe economically growing up, then the identity with your hair, and then of course Willowdale, as I already alluded to, it's pretty. It's I think
It is.
still it's a pretty white sort of
Rich. It's
area, although it's become
we
more
call it rich
Chinese in
community.
version. How did you how did you fit in and adapt to all that?
Um, that's such a really good question. I think since I was young, like I can remember when I was about 7 or 9, and I was like pretty much always behind my mom or always behind like older people, people who were much older than I was. Like, I guess from time I was always an observer, and I wasn't a, I was fearless of independence. And for me, I I guess I always had a natural like communication component to me because I just approached people or I would just be by myself. Like I vividly remember that before we left Brahms. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about Brahms. That's my heart. After we left Brahms as a child, that's Don Mills and Finch. That's where all of this conflict started happening with me and my life and this ripple effect now. And when that happened, I remember I was in the playground and I was just rolling a snowball, and my friend back in the day, Janelle, she just approached me and we just started talking. And from then I always got myself involved in something. Like in school, in elementary school, I was always involved. Like every single thing I was in, I was involved in. And when we were in Brahms, I know my mom, being a single mom, she got us into like every program. We were in the Breakfast Club, we were in Kids in Motion, we were just always doing something with people. And for me to overcome the situation, that big transition when we moved to Willowdale, um, I think it was just, being comfortable to an extent of sharing my story, and and meeting new people wasn't a big deal for me. But further than that, I felt that I just never feared trying.
Hmm.
Like, I just never feared trying.
You ta-
How I overcome my how it became a very difficult thing for me when I was small, excuse me, when I was a child, is I just questioned everything. Everything around me I questioned, and anytime somebody had a question, I just answered it to the best of my abilities. Like, that's something that carried me through dealing with my issues as a kid.
um, you also talk a lot, pretty openly, in class, for example, about your relationship with your mom, right? There's some
Right.
pretty deep and profound things going on there. What was it? What was that like growing up? What did you experience? What did you learn from your mom? What did you not want to be like, as far as your mom was concerned? What was that like?
Um, it was a very observant experience. Like I literally watched my mom through every single thing, literally, to points, to points that were really sensitive to my eyes, to points that were very emotional for my feelings. My mom literally went through a lot of stuff, and it's only now actually, since being at the micro skills women's self-employment training program, that I've met the set sisters, in addition to the facilitators as well, the lecturers, facilitators, including yourself, that I've been able to actually understand why growing up underneath my mom was the most emotional drainage, but also the most emotional upliftment in my life.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna just say generally speaking, which is something common, and I don't want nobody going to my mother's door, because I will definitely, right?
Yeah.
Growing up as a child, and we see it, it's very common in certain communities, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but I know in our community, um, delinquent behavior is something that you're kind of born into seeing. And growing up as a child, that was something that I was born into seeing, because that was how we survived. My mom did everything she could. She went to school, she did this, and through that stage she went through her own emotional baggage. And because I was by her side through my childhood up until now, I guess energy, God knows best, right? I was the only one that could pretty much understand that. And when she was ready to release her emotional baggage, I became the recipient of that. But it's only now that I'm older that I've come to realize that, and I'm having that conversation with her on how to improve our relationship, despite, passing on, not even despite, but just to stop passing on this generational oppression, you know from her mom and from her mom's mom, like her grandma. Like, it's got to stop, right? So that was our relationship. It was rough. My mom and I, we were like so close. Like, we were really, 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 really close. And then there was like separation anxiety, and I think that's where really things started to like go downhill. And she was going through her own transition and trying to live a happy life, finally meeting someone that could like appreciate her. Every
Yeah.
woman wants to be taken care of to
Oh,
an
for sure.
extent. And she finally found somebody after her whole life was filled with abuse and drama. Like, and I understand where I have it, like where I get it from, is because she passed it on to me unintentionally, but she did. And I respect her for what she went through, because look who I am now. Like, and that's what I praise her about. But I definitely know that I'm hurt, but I can't sit on hurt. How progressive is sitting on hurt? How long are you gonna sit on a pin, you know? And
Yeah.
I learned that through my set sisters and my strong facilitators such as yourself, that you can't dwell on something that has passed, but you can definitely make things move forward. And that's where I am in my life, from past to present.
Sounds like she had some anger issues. And was there depression? We're hearing a lot about depression these days, especially with Robin Williams committing suicide. Was there depression in your with your mom?
I can't dub exactly what she went through, whether she had depression, but I know whatever she was going through, I received a lot of emotional depression, personally speaking, because I was always trying to make sure that mom was okay, and it wasn't even a question of why are you doing it. It was just, is mom okay? And then that kind of made me suppress a lot of my own emotions and my own things, you know,
Yeah.
because she passed it on to me. So I definitely experienced emotional depression. That's why, I really do introduce the bond, that mother-daughter relationship cooperative, because we need to tap into emotional intelligence, and the relationship, and how effective it is, how much it affects, excuse me, the relationship of a mother and a daughter. And I'm not trying to devalue the relationship of a mother and a son, but I'm just speaking from my experience. The mother-daughter relationship is quite significant in the life of the daughter, you know.
Hmm.
And if you're a mother or a daughter, you're a mother or a daughter, and you know what it's like to be in both roles, is my point. So we want to make sure that we are fulfilling both roles as safely and sacredly as possible.
Right. So
And
when
then
did
talk
you
about,
begin to heal, Kimesha? When did you begin to heal and be more accepting of this, of your, of your mom and of the situation growing up? When did you begin to heal? And did you have mentors growing up? Who did you turn
oh my,
to for help?
if I spoke about my mentors, that would wrap up the entire show. Like my mentors, my mentors have been strangers. Well, when I was young growing up, my mentor was my cousin, and she taught me about menstruation and her experiences as a teenager. So that's where I learned being that. But mentors in terms of my life, wow.
Who
They
who stands out?
Who stands out the most?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so hard. My daughter.
What did she teach you?
She taught me. She's teaching me patience. She's teaching me her and her father are teaching me the value of sacrifice. But my daughter is definitely teaching me the value of my life. Like, she's really teaching me, like, what am I living for? Not only her in the flesh, but to teach other mothers and daughters the essence of that relationship. That union is so important. And it can actually, as soon as you give birth, forget about the pregnant part, because then you're just a bitch and you're just angry. I hope we're not allowed to swear. You're just angry because you're like, oh my goodness, this stomach, you're emotional. But you see, when that life exits your body, that is when you really understand, wow, this is what I'm living for. So my daughter definitely was the biggest slap in the face, and I hate to sound so cliche, but she really was. Like, she really is my driving force. She's my spine. I write my vows to her. I cry to Siobhan, Melanie, all the set sisters, my sister. I cry to everybody about, the faults that I'm doing that I feel that are affecting my daughter. Whether she sees these faults or she's in these faults, she's just never given up. She's never given up on me. Like, when we sleep, on a mattress on the floor, when it's freezing cold winter, like, so many of the situations that we've been in, my daughter has never made it difficult for me, other than when I get frustrated. And it was my cousin who I last lived with, and I respect her because she was a significant part of this transition. She was the first one to actually make me realize that.
Wow.
My daughter, yeah, she was the one that made me realize my frustrations, I'm using my frustrations out on my daughter because I'm frustrated, but my daughter has nothing to do with my frustrations, like, literally.
So do you get that then, that as far as you and your mom go, that you weren't the cause of her frustration, that it was her own life, and you were just sort of, kind of conveniently there,
Absolutely. Where did we learn this? Oh my goodness, I need someone to reference me in this, because I was just, oh my goodness, forgive me. I was just, someone just shared with me that your child chooses the mother. And I strongly, strongly believe and understand more than ever why God allowed me to choose my mother and why my daughter chose me. Because of what my mom went through, and even what Tessert's grandmother, like her father's, my mother-in-law, let's call it that, okay? My mother-in-law, what she went through is also a, like, affirmation of why I was born of my mother.
Right.
And why Tessert was born of me, and why her grandmother is her grandmother. Like, I just get it now. And that started most significantly when I returned to Canada from Ghana July 16th, 2013. But the biggest reality check was when I stepped through the walls of micro skills, that this has become, like, I've never gained this much clarity, this much comfort and honesty and transparency and self-assurance than ever, except for when I walk through those doors. and my
Wow.
cousin that happened. So I thank her. I can't go without thanking her. No matter how traumatic my experiences has been emotionally, I'm gonna let you know nothing physically has harmed me, but my emotional scars are, I feel a little traumatized, like just from them. But I hear so many other people and they talk about their lives where I'm at now at Angela's place, Jennifer Whitaker's and the other sisters who are there, their stories. I've come to learn that, Kimesha, out of your whole life, you've only fallen, but you haven't even cracked your skull. So I feel that now I'm at the stage where I can forward my life story and bring other women who have experienced such empowering stories that make them cry at night, but make other people smile. That's what I'm ready to do. I'm ready for that movement. So I started my business and I started the bond, and I gave birth to the best child that I know, and my mother gave birth to me, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful to have you in our life. So it's Q&A time. I want to open the call. So Melanie, I'm going to unmute you. Keep your kids quiet. No, I'm just kidding. Melanie's going to kill me tomorrow. Hang on. I'm just going to try and unmute. Oh, hang on. I unmuted everybody. That's what I did. Unmute all. There. Oh, I can't unmute all. Hang on.
Hi, guys.
There we are. Okay, and now I got to unmute. There's Kimesha. Okay, we're all there. All right. So any questions for Kimesha? Anything you really want to know but we're afraid to ask?
No, Kimesha and I are pretty good with that. We're pretty open. Right, Kimesha?
Oh, yeah.
I just think you're a phenomenal woman and you've had an amazing journey, and I'm so glad to know you and to see where you're going in the future. Like, just keep focused and keep doing your thing.
Thank you. I will. I am.
Siobhan, do you have any questions? I think Siobhan's asleep.
No, Mateo probably got to her.
Yeah, I'm just putting Mateo to sleep down, but no, much like Melanie, Kimesha and I, we're pretty open about our similarities in our upbringing and where we are today. And I just want to applaud Kimesha that I know sometimes, some days she has, she falls off track and uses her past as a deterrent or a distraction instead of using it as power to pursue and to push. But no, I'm so proud of the progress that she's made, and we've only known each other for nearly 3 months, and I've seen the growth, and just and even in something simple as dialogue, that I see that she's taking all that she's been given over the course of the program and applying it to her life. So I commend you, and I just ask you to keep up the good work, and don't let those days that you fall off, because we're all human, that will happen. Those days that it does happen, don't let it set you back. Just keep pushing.
Oh, beautiful advice. Thanks, Siobhan and Mel. So I have more questions. Can I forge ahead? Does anybody else have any questions?
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to go back to sort of those adult early years. You mentioned you went to the same high school as I did, but were you in the art? Were you in the arts program? Were you in the drama program?
I was in that program.
And what was that like? What did that teach you? Because you are pretty self-expressed, and you have a flair. When you speak in class, you have a flair. So what did being in the arts, how did that help you? How did that shape you into who you are now?
I mean, that was actually one of the most disappointing points of my teenage life. Is not even prom, but that was one of the most disappointing things, because I was very Earl Haig. The group of friends that I had in Earl Haig, it was more obvious, like the differences between us. As as cool as everybody was, as much as Kim was like the cool girl and the class clown, and that was kind of difficult for me too, because everybody was like an A student, like literally all my friends, either in the gifted program or they're like all super A students, or they specialize in something. And then there was me. And I was just like, you know, I was only really good at, you know, drama, you know, entertaining people. So I actually enrolled myself into that program. They're probably going to kill me now, but I filled out the application, both components of the application, and I got it signed. I didn't forge it, but I got it signed. And I got into the dramatic arts program, so the Claude Watson School for Dramatic Arts. And I didn't last in that program because I was really discouraged academically, and you definitely had to have a certain academic standing. And for example, instead of taking 8 courses, you actually have to take, like, I think it was like 8.5 or something, your major and then your dramatic major and whatnot. So that was difficult for me because I got really scared, I got discouraged, and I really wanted it. Like, I always wanted to do like acting. It was either teaching or acting, and I quit. I got scared and I quit the program. And I was advised, you know, Kim, you can do it, you can do it. And I have this anxiety thing about me where if there's a sense of competition, or if there's a sense of like barrier, I used to just succumb to it and be like, no, I'm done, I'm out. And I was in the program for about like maybe like 2 months, and then I got scared and I quit the program. And that was
what if
like,
that was your daughter? How would you coach your daughter if that was her, and she was going to a program she really wanted, but you know, the fears, the doubts, the insecurities came up? How would you coach your daughter to handle that situation?
I would provide them for her. I just would give them to her. Like, I felt that maybe that the academic support wasn't there. I didn't know where to look for it, or I already felt like an outcast as it was. So for me, it would definitely be a part of my role is to make sure that if Tossert's going to pursue anything, my role as her parent is to provide her with the tools within my means. So be it she needs academic support, make sure that she has it, or she's coming to me to comfortable enough to come to me to communicate that. You know, that's definitely what I do. I think everybody can pursue what they need as long as they have the support and information and access to that support.
So you said your relationship with your daughter is pretty magical. That she's the biggest teacher in person that inspires you. What example do you want to teach and share with her?
I want to teach her the things that make me imbalanced, and the things that and just keep emphasizing on what she's naturally amazing at. For some reason, she's the one who told me she wants to be a doctor.
Okay.
So, you know, I teach her, you know, as soon as she says something that she likes doing, my important thing is identifying, because maybe that was something that I didn't lack, but it wasn't definitely supported within the capacity I felt that could have pushed me a little further. But I definitely would, with Tossert, the teaching things that we do are, you know, if she says she wants to be a doctor, the first thing I did was I went and bought her a doctor kit. When we go to the doctor's office, she entertains them, and I make sure that I ask for a Band-Aid. Everything that's free we can get at the doctor's, that's what I get to encourage her to be a doctor.
Just don't get the painkillers, okay? You know.
No painkillers, no fake pills. You know.
Yeah.
She takes homeopathy. She eats ginger. She eats ginger and garlic raw. Like, those are the conversations my daughter and I have. Like, you know, how it's gonna make her better. Like, that's what we do. And I definitely share with her consequences of what she does. So, not in the sense of, you know, you're going to get in trouble, but anytime my daughter asks why, I must find the best answer according to my knowledge about it. I even bought her a book. It's like over 100 pages. It's called the book of Why. It's a kid's book. Why do we brush our teeth? Why do we have cavities?
Right.
Like,
Why
every
is the
single
sky
question.
blue?
Yeah, why is the sky blue? Yeah, you got it exactly. The germs and everything. Every interaction or anything I do with my daughter has to be learning, because that was one of the things that discouraged me academically. Is that Like I didn't know what like paradigm would mean. Like some simple words that I was like, I don't even know what that means. I have no idea what that means. So
Well,
I
you have
always felt
one dime and
behind.
another dime. That's a pair of dimes.
Well, there you go. See, I never knew what like alchemy meant or
Right.
alchemist. Like those kinds. I didn't even know what ignorant meant. Because back in the day, ignorant for us is you're a hothead. Like you're just talking out of your neck. Like that's your ignorant. But ignorant really actually means a lack of knowledge in something, you know. But
Right.
so those are the things that I don't want her to miss out on. I want her to learn how to swim. So we get her into swimming. Like anything that's a life skill or educational or basic knowledge, she needs to know because she wants to know.
My dad used to teach me that as a kid, you know, and he is a kid much different than our kids because he grew up in the,
Okay.
you know, like the 20s. But he used to look up a dictionary and try and learn new words by just reading the dictionary for a little bit every day, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. That stuff is awesome. I just got her a book, and it's like a dictionary, Pictionary, I should call it, because it has a picture. So the illustration, say the letter was A, it would be like find alligator, find apple, find this, that, and you know, you actually have to go looking. So it's like, where's Waldo
Right.
the thing? It's
So,
pretty cool.
so this mother-daughter relationship, you know, it's been a source of pain for you, but it's also been a true gift and true learning.
Yes.
You know, it's a true passion. It's your deepest gift that you want to share with others. What is it that you want other women to know? How can other women be able to begin to have brilliant, life-changing relationships with their moms and with themselves?
I think it's important to know um, literally where you came from. But what my program is going to do is going to be talking about the like how to cope and how to manage, you know, how your life has been affected by your relationship with your mother. That's what we're talking about. How your life has been affected by your relationship with your mother, and talking about the coping strategies or coping mechanisms of how to actually be able to communicate on things that are life essential. Like for example, when I get my period, should I be uncomfortable asking my mother for pads? No. Should I get a lecture of don't go out there and have sex? No. I should be able to be comfortable and say, Mom, there's something on my pants and I don't know what the heck that is. Learned about it, but it's actually happening. Mom should be able to know this, the way, and be comfortable enough to know the way of how to approach her daughter, because that's something that's going to carry her throughout her life. I always tell my daughter or everybody around me that I need to start to come to me first and be comfortable coming to me first before going to anybody else. And that's so important between a mother and a daughter. It takes her
Yeah,
through her life.
I agree. So, what's a healthy relationship like? So, first of all, it's, you know, communication, open, honest communication is essential. But if it was a perfect world, Kimesha, and you could wave a magic wand, what would you have wanted your relationship to be like with your mom?
I would have wanted it to be, um, what would I have wanted it to be? I would want it to be less defensive. Gosh.
Is it
I think if we remove like the defensiveness of it, it would have been much more flexible.
is it like that now? Is it getting there now?
It's so much more improving. It's improving because like, you know, if you want to communicate with me, if you want us to actually have a progressive relationship where, for one thing, you know, I talk about what my triggers are and what your triggers are. That's what I'm doing now. That's the only way we're going to move forward. I mean, if we don't do that and be comfortable knowing that, listen, this is my comfort zone, this is your comfort zone, don't get it mixed messages, or if I'm able to ask you, are you upset with me or is everything okay between us? You're able to say, tell me yes or no. And I think that is it. Instead of the finger pointing game of, you know, you, or having it just in one perspective. I think that's where things can get lost in translation. But being
I
open
agree.
and doing things, I think that's so important. You know, if we just talk about analyzing our relationship and not doing stuff, then all we're thinking about is, you know, all we're leaving space for is the things that don't work. So going out, doing things, respecting each other's schedules, respecting each other's time, respecting each other's roles, respecting that, mom is mom now, no kids around, understanding that, okay, it could get a little lonely, there's nobody around, literally, especially how we were growing up, or just our upbringing and the circumstances. But then also remembering that, okay, Kimesha's also an adult now, and she's trying to start her own family. So while intentions are good, the actions can lead to confusion and doubt and all of those questionable things. So that's definitely something I would have removed.
What are 3 most important life lessons you want to impart on your daughter?
Commitment, stability, and self-determination.
Okay. Sounds like, the other key point, just listening to your answer just there, like being okay to be vulnerable with your mom, or even vulnerable with other relationships. Being okay to be vulnerable and to say, hey, this is what triggers me. This is my shit, and
Yeah.
and this is what comes up when you do that. So what can we do that's going to be maybe different? So you're I think what I heard you say in that, in how a good relationship would look like, is to be okay being real with each other, and not attacking the weakness, but honoring and respecting the weakness, and then acting upon it. You said get in action. I like to do things. I like to do things with your mom. You wanna be in action around it. So it's okay to be real, but you don't want to pick on the weaknesses. You want to sort of acknowledge the weaknesses,
Exactly.
and then do something about it, right?
Exactly. You got it. You pinpointed it.
That's
Perfect.
good.
That's
So
exactly.
also in your bio, that being said, it says you're a stand for principles, passion, and solution. Speak to us about living a principle-centered life, because your life's been rocky at times. So
Pretty rough.
how do you live a principle-centered life, amidst some of the storms and the challenges you've gone through?
One of the things that guided me was um, my comfort and my standards. So I always try to make sure that my physical comfort and my physical standards are within my comfort zone, within my range. Um, that's definitely one.
Okay.
And the second thing would be is that I always made sure this. I lived by do unto others that I would want done unto myself. And that being said, it also requires accepting the consequences of if you have faulted somebody. So that
Right.
is what I've literally been living by. So I've been comfortable saying, you know what? If I'm at fault for something, if someone tells me that I'm at fault for something or calls me out on something, I'm comfortable saying, you know what? You're right. And maybe it wasn't my intention, but this is what may have triggered it. So that transparency component of of accepting, um, accepting my actions, and being principled enough to have actions that are, in good deed. That was
Yeah.
my guiding light.
And also, again, you're vulnerable. Like, this is what triggered it. Okay,
Right.
here's where it's at for me. What about passion? Where does passion come into play in your life?
Passion is because I always knew, I always had a drive. Like I was always wanting to do something, like make a change, or like looking at things that haven't been working and being like, oh my gosh, come fix this. Like, for example, I just passed by Target, and I'm like, how come the people who have to stop, like fix the displays after mean customers, pull out towels, and she has to refold them. It was a woman at the time. She has to refold them. I'm like, they should have some kind of cushion for her to walk with, like they would a clipboard, so she can kneel down and be comfortable. So I'm always passionate about having solutions towards making life balanced, like making it make sense for us, so that essentially we're living within balance, number one, but we're also be able to have that clarity to live a purpose filled life as destined by God or the energies out there.
Wow.
That's my passion.
And then you just spoke about seeking solutions too there.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel that there's just like my favorite bank, TD Bank. There is a solution for most things. I'm not saying solutions happen rapidly, which is something I'm learning about within patience, right? But there is definitely a solution that can make things more cohesive, more manageable, and less less, make less more. That's what I believe solution is.
Great.
Make
Is there a
less more.
solution for my credit card balance?
There is a solution for it. Switch to TD. No. We'll talk about that if we really need to.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. So, who are, some of, your heroes? You mentioned your daughter, but, who do you admire, Kimesha? Who inspired you throughout your journey? Is there somebody else that really stands out? You mentioned you had some mentors growing up, and you mentioned people now, but is there anybody else that really sort of stands out?
My teachers, my teachers in my teachers in elementary school. My teachers in elementary school, Mrs. Campbell definitely. She just visioned my life being great, and she always put positive energy into my life. May her soul rest in peace. And then in my teenage years, coming to Woodbridge, to that big transition, it was definitely rest in peace, Suzanne Mizuno. Um, they just never gave up on me. They understood my conflict, and they just never gave up. They just believed in me, and
What books
allowed
helped?
me to believe in myself.
What books helped you?
What books helped me?
Yeah, you read.
What? Oh, there was. What book? Ooh. Oh my goodness. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. When I was a kid, number one.
Okay.
A book that really resonated with me. I would have to say, oh my God, I have so many books, David. I hate to sound cliche, but I would say The Purpose Driven Life.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that made me think about my behavior, actually.
Okay. So we're gonna final questions. Open the lines. If you want to unmute yourself, do you have any other last minute questions or
They're kicking me
shares?
out of the library. Can you believe it?
What's that?
They're kicking me out of the library. Can you believe it?
No, don't. You got to go to the library.
I am, and they're like, get out. I'm like,
Why?
because it's 9 o'clock.
Oh,
That's
okay.
okay. They can wait. I told them, and they didn't quit me.
Any final questions? We're okay. All right.
They're there.
Well, that's a bad slide. That's from last month. I just want to, thank Siobhan and Melanie. Thank you.
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you. Do you have any
Thank you
last
so
questions?
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay,
being here.
good.
Thanks. I hope you
Well, I
learned
just
something.
wanted to suggest a good book read.
Okay, what?
Thanks. Can I suggest a good?
Yeah,
I
sure.
learned a lot, and we're not all so different, are we?
Mhm.
There's an amazing book called The Laws of Success. In 69, Napoleon Hill. It's the original, let's say, Think and Grow Rich,
Right.
and I think it'd be really helpful if Kamisha could read it. She'd probably
I
enjoy
will.
it.
I will.
Okay.
Okay. You're welcome. That's all.
Sounds good. Thanks. Thanks. I just want to thank you, Melanie, Siobhan, Kamisha, for being our guests this month. Next month, I just got to promote this. I'm doing a real special webinar series called Live Life's With. It's a 6 week, 6 guests, and one incredible you. So I hope I really want to get people in on those calls and
Okay.
sessions starting mid-September. So I'm really excited about that. So I think at this point, we can all say goodbye at once. So on three, two, one, can we all say goodbye?
Yes.
Okay,
Goodbye,
in
everybody.
three, two, one,
Bye.
bye. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Kamisha.
Bye, Kimesha.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.